Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026, and today we're getting hyped for foraging season. We'll talk about what 2025 taught me for 2026, and we'll discuss one of the most important family tools in the market garden, the rake. No, seriously, rakes rule. You'll find out. So let's do it. All right, everyone, welcome to Tilth Tuesday, your weekly reminder that you can get living soil compost and potting mixes from the Bonafide nerds over there at Tilth Soil. Check out Nathan on the Composter Podcast, Season 4, Episode 3, or head to tilthsoil.com to learn more. I hope the week has begun in the way that you hoped. I hope your great backyard bird count went well as well. I got a few more birds yesterday with the red-shouldered hawk being the standout. Not seen that one before, but heard it twice yesterday, so that's super cool. Did not get any good photos of it, or really anything else beyond a little cardinal in the fog, but hopefully some of you did. It is supposed to hit almost 70 degrees over the next few days, which is a lot of degrees for February. It's like 21 of them in Celsius. The tomatoes and peppers are popping well, probably enjoying a little bit of this quote-unquote heat wave. I'm feeling good about the forthcoming grafting process, which could be, underway in as little as a week, give or take. Spring is slowly inching its way forward, and as always, feel free to send in your 20-second farm video clips to farmermike@no-tillgrowers.com so we can see how things are coming along for you on your all's farms and or garden spaces. I love that. It's one of my favorite things in the world. All right, so I usually reserve Tuesdays to talk about what rabbit hole I was going down this weekend, but I actually didn't have any interesting rabbit holes this weekend. Well, actually I did, but I had a bunch of small ones, but none of them particularly worth their own segments yet. But anyway, one thing I was thinking about this weekend as the family played a board game with the kids was foraging. Now, what do these things have to do with one another, board games and foraging? Well, the board game we were playing is actually called Ravine. I actually quite like it. It's great to play with the kids around 10 years old. Our 7-year-old can hang, but just requires a little bit of assistance, but mostly it's fine. And it's good for strategizing and for a good laugh. Basically, the premise of this board game is that your plane has crash landed in somewhere in the mountains or the woods or something, and you have to survive several nights until you are rescued. If you lose a certain amount of health in that time, you go mad, and the kids love it, because in this game, madness is a hoot. Anyway, the details are not relevant, really, except that the part of the survival thing is that you have to forage. And the thing that I always find myself complaining about with this game and with the characters in this game is that they are the worst foragers. The characters will go out for like an entire day and get one wild onion and one stone. And somehow this process takes 2 points of health. It makes me absolutely bonkers. But also, there is a part of me that feels like this is not too far off from the average person. How much food and useful material can the average person really identify in the woods? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that prime foraging season is coming up, the spring rules for foraging, and it's a good time to start going out and learning some plants, what they can be used for and how. Of course, one obligatory note here, you need some good guides on the subject and absolutely never eat anything that you are not 100% or even 1000% sure is safe, especially when it comes to things like mushrooms. Most plants are relatively benign, save for the few that you can easily learn to identify. Mushrooms are a little bit trickier, but it's not terribly hard to learn the seasons of the edible mushrooms and plants and how to properly identify them and utilize them. Now, there are apps and things you can use, but I also really like getting a book or two from your region as a great place to start learning about foraging. In fact, shouts to John Collier or John Carlier, who sent me these cool Foraging Your Roots books. So shouts to you, John. But something like that's great for, foraging is a super fun activity to do with your kids. And in fact, we still have one child who the only vegetables they'll really eat are things like wood sorrel that they forage themselves, which fine by me, I guess. It's super cool. Anyway, I love foraging. I love the flavors and the activity of it. I like learning new plants and the many ways that basically every plant in the forest can be used. Every plant, even the quote-unquote poisonous ones, have utility from medicine to fiber and so on. And I also like just knowing if I were ever stranded in the woods, I would be able to at least gather some amount of sustenance and shelter, at least more than one wild onion in a rock. I remember reading stories of people who survived the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl by knowing how to forage, restaurants who survived lean times by being able to forage some of the ingredients and save money there. It's a great skill to develop. Walking in the woods is refreshing, and why not explore the natural world a little bit while we still have it? Hopefully it will stay longer, but You never know. It's easy to forget or underappreciate just how much magic there is still left in nature, food and medicine and clothing and shelter everywhere. So don't be these characters on Ravine. Learn you some dang plants. Right now, in the winter, chickweed is an easy one to find and identify, as is purple dead nettle. They're probably just about the only things actually growing, so that will help you to locate them. And they both have several uses. Find a good guidebook or app and start digging in, or just, sometimes you don't have to dig. You just pluck it out of the ground. Anyway, I'm sure we've got some good forager fans out there and would love to hear your all's thoughts on this and the resources you all use. Has anyone done foraging as a business or part of their business? I would love to hear from you all. We, in fact, used to forage for chefs for years when we had access to like 100 acres of really nice old woods. I don't think we ever really charged enough for that amount of work, but it was fun to do. So yeah, let us know your thoughts. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, lessons from a year gone by. Be right back to 2025. Ooh, that was fun. That's the name of my single. Sorta. Be right back.
Still can't get in the garden. I think we've had 3 days over freezing in the last 4 weeks. But it's supposed to hit 40 this weekend, so hopefully we'll get in there soon.
Today's episode is brought to you by Tend. Farming is hard, running it shouldn't be. Meet Tend, the purpose-built platform built by farmers for farmers. Plan your season, map your farm, and track every task from seed to sale. No more spreadsheets, no more guesswork, just smart, seamless workflows. Tend adapts to your farm, 1 acre or 100. Real-time inventory, sales, labor, tracking, traceability, and analytics all in one place. You grow food, flowers, fruit, and more. Tend helps you to grow smarter. Start free today at tend.com. That's TEND.com. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Patrick Daubert, who writes, quote, "Happy New Year. Did you learn or experience something this year that was moving enough to make you want to add that practice or change what you currently practice? Side note, one of my favorite Liverpool kits is Milner's. Glad the Seagulls have one now, too," end quote. All right, so first of all, James Milner is such a legend, and he has been in the Premier League since like 2002 at 16 years old, which is quite unheard of, and he's still going, and frankly, still quite lethal. He almost had a really spectacular goal versus Villa last week. So anyway, love that guy, love that longevity. I'll have what he's having. Big fan. Let's go Seagulls. Anyway, did I learn or experience something this year that was moving enough to make me want to add that practice or change what I currently practice? Well, good question. When I reflect on that, what comes to mind is that I am going back towards mowing my living pathways lower than I have for a couple years. I liked the idea of letting them get kind of tall and then mowing them really tall and just kind of leaving this big bushy living pathway there. It just had really high soil health benefits, but the risk of weed contamination just became too much. We would get a lot of weed spillage. Speaking of chickweed and purple nettle and that sort of stuff growing into the beds in the spring, and that caused lots of issues. The grasses have not so much been an issue, but those other little weeds have been more problematic. So yeah, back to treating them more like a lawn, I guess, or at least closer to that, but still mowed as high as my little mower will let me, which I think is like 4 to 6 inches high. I'm not sure if this one fits, but I was also heartened by my TEF trials, so I look forward to playing around more with this like sort of summer cover crop and seeing where I can get that crop to fit in and where it may cover some soil for me, where it won't compete too much or have enough time to go to seed. I think I went a little overboard last year, assuming it would be fine with the okra, but both crops seem to suffer a little bit in our drought there in the middle of the season. Also, the milpa patch, that is another thing I really, really was heartened by this year and really, really want to explore more. It was so much fun. I'm going to keep playing around with that a lot this year. I think my timing of the plantings was okay, just in terms of how and when I planted things. It was really just weed management that needed some work because there wasn't like an established mulch in that area, and there won't be the one this year either, but there will be a little bit of crimson clover cover crop. That should, feed the whole thing nicely. I just wanted to hang out with that patch like all day long. Just hang out with it. I feel like that's kind of what agriculture should always feel like. I just abundant and tall and shady and, green. Loved it. I also really liked the Sumi Soaker irrigation setup this past year that Diego Footer sent me from Modern Grower to trial. I plan to integrate that system more into the farm this upcoming season. In fact, I liked it so much. I just need a version that will work with our tomatoes. like I need something that's not going to spray the leaves. I'm just considering flipping the whole thing upside down, and then just letting it saturate the soil that way, and then probably regretting that later when it clogs and complaining about it. That'll be fun. I'm excited to just produce a little more food also this year. We pulled back quite a bit last year, but it turns out probably more than necessary so that we could rebalance a little bit with this show and with the farm and all the things. So still going with a smaller growing area than years past, down to about 1/3 of an acre of actual vegetable production. But we think we could push a little bit more out of that than we did last year. So that should be fun. I'm obviously still grafting, still going to try grafting cucumbers as well, which I'm considering, starting actually today. In fact, I really want to stick with the 20-ish minute yoga every day all year, but we'll see if I'll be able to pull that off when soccer coaching season starts here in a couple weeks and the spring starts to pop off. But that certainly falls into the experiencing something that I want to add category, as my back has not felt this good since I was a kid and didn't maybe have a back. You have backs when you're kids? I don't know. Hasn't felt that good in a long time. We just got burlap, and I'm excited to start playing around with that more and increasingly moving away from plastics. That's a big one I'm motivated to work harder on this year and just maybe be more like James Milner in general. That too. All right, fun topic there. I love that. What experiences did you all have last year that are altering your plans for 2026? Let us know. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. Then bed rake, which is almost an anagram of the word break. Coincidence? It's doubtful. Be right back. Also almost an anagram. Anyway, yep. Today's episode is brought to you by Certified Naturally Grown. Certified Naturally Grown is the grassroots certification built by farmers for farmers. C&G gives local growers like you recognition for the commitment of producing food without synthetic chemicals by assuring customers that your practices are verified. C&G's peer review inspection model keeps the cost of certification low while creating opportunities for knowledge sharing amongst a strong, supportive network of like-minded farmers. Apply today to be certified before the season ramps up. Applications processed within 7 days. Learn more at naturallygrown.org. All right, back to the show. All right, so my focus on Tuesdays has been garden tools, and today I thought I would talk a bit about rakes, specifically bed rakes. Can a person genuinely make a whole segment of just talking about rakes? Well, we are about to find out. In fact, I have all the faith in the world in this segment because rakes are a wildly important farm tool in the market garden, and there is at least a decent amount to say about them because the options and utility of the rakes is quite large. Now, there are a few different types of rakes out there, and we own 2 of them with a third rake in the want all caps category, but this one's a little pricey. First, when people ask me what tools I would say to start a farm or garden with, I always say that the most important tools to me in terms of, say, like soil management are a rake, a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and a stirrup hoe. If that's all I had, I could probably get pretty far and grow a decent garden, but the rake is a big part of that whole mix. Bed preparation, especially when it comes to directly seeding crops, really benefits from raking the bed clean of debris. Spreading compost is much easier with a good bed rake as well. There are even rakes that do some weeding for you. So let's go through each of these rakes and what to look for. First, I think everyone needs a good bed rake. It doesn't have to be the big 30-inch bed rake necessarily. A hard, lawn leaf rake will do the trick, but something that will pull and push heavy materials like compost or wood chips, I find is important to have around. We use this leaf rake from Earth Tools, actually, right not far from here in Kentucky, but the Johnny's one is fine too. Either of those or any of those sort of large bed rakes will do the trick nicely. Or like I said, on a smaller scale, a hard leaf rake is a good option as well. It's just not quite as adjustable, ergo not quite as ergonomic. Kind of fits. Now, the 30-inch, 75-centimeter rakes are nice too because they can help you mark rows by, just by like sticking some tubing on the ends of each of the tines at the distances that you want and then dragging them through the soil. But again, just about any rake can be adapted to do that. Now, the second kind of rake we use a ton is a tine rake. It's not exactly a leaf rake, but it's similar where instead of like a hard head with fixed tines, it's got loose, thin tines that grab onto stuff without really doing much disturbance. A leaf rake could do this job as well, but it's the light, thin tines that really add to the versatility of this tool, which I got many years ago from Johnny's as a tine rake weeder, I think, but it did not really work for that for like weeding the soil, but worked really well for flipping beds. I use that tine rake way more than the bed prep rake because it just has so many more uses. It's so much more versatile. So typically what that looks like is I will remove the previous crop, leaving any roots in the soil. I will maybe take like the stirrup hoe and remove any weeds that are there. Then I will rake that debris with the tine rake, add amendments, broad fork if need be, and then lightly rake that again with the same tine rake, just kind of breaking up those clods a little bit, trying to get some of those amendments deep into the broad fork crevices, and then I'll plant. The harder bed rake I will use only if I'm not dealing with those plant roots from the previous crop, because it becomes a pain in that situation because it just starts pulling on them. So mostly spreading the compost and working with new beds is where I use that harder like bed rake. Neither of those rakes though, of course, cultivate the bed like a real tine rake weeder does. So yes, there is a type of rake known as a tine rake weeder, or just tine weeder, that you can literally run over crops with, and it will lightly cultivate the weeds out around them on the surface, as long as they are pretty small. I have in fact seen one of those in action at Ferme Quatre-Temps in Quebec many years ago, the brand being the Too Bad Cats brand, but I think there are several now on the market. And I will say they are a little pricey for me, but for certain crops could come in quite handy as a small scale alternative, perhaps to some cultivation like finger weeders, and certainly to cultivation in general. Will these tine rake weeders pull up the transplants? Sure, maybe a little bit, but not once those transplants are well established, and not so long as you time it all very well. Like you wouldn't want to immediately you run that over a bed that has just been transplanted. So for that type of rake, the idea is to transplant or sow, the crop, wait until it's at a relatively advanced stage, and then literally just run the dang bed over with the tine rake weeder, pressed into the ground so it can kill newly germinating weeds, kind of lightly cultivating the surface. Newly being the key word there. It ain't going to do much for older weeds in the same way it's not going to do much to harm your established crop. Anyway, I love me some rakes. Underrated garden tool for sure. Let me know your thoughts, favorite rakes, favorite uses, all that stuff. Otherwise, Tilth Tuesday, I think we're done here. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That is an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of February, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Ryan King and Kelly O'Dale, our earthworms from last month. Shouts to you all. All right, so as you will remember from our story yesterday, our guitarist, James, has just been asked by a mysterious group of dudes, a band presumably, if he wants to join their band. And honestly, James doesn't have a ton else going on. No one is getting in-person guitar signups really anymore, so why not? But also, James is no dummy. So he decides to, give them a tentative yes, but he wants to first do a rehearsal, get to hear their music a little bit, and see how they jive. Touring is hard. You can't just, jump right in with a bunch of strangers. And when he asks the guys for a, link to their music so he can get to know it, they laugh and they say, you already know it, or you will already know it. So you're a cover band, he asks them. Ha, they laugh again. See you tomorrow. And that we'll talk about tomorrow on Rock and Roll Out. Roll Out? No, that's already a song. Well, I don't know. I don't know what happens. We'll see. Thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you tomorrow.